Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Dove. That isn't too loud, is it, Millie? Excellent. What you can expect from this demo, well, you'll be able to go away and definitely ride a 20-meter circle, that's for sure. But more than that, you'll have a much better understanding of accuracy in your dressage tests. You will have a better understanding of what judges are looking for. And I think you'll also get a better understanding of how to ride your horse straight. And whether that means straight on a straight line or straight on a circle, you will find that you'll be able to improve that. You'll get a better understanding of practice, review, fluidity in a test, and I'll also cover some of what the judges' comments might mean to you when you get them on your sheet. Towards the end of the 2 hours, I'll be popping back up to the gallery just to have a talk about the book and to answer any questions that anyone has, because I think it's a bit easier answering it up there than shouting back and forth. I've been here at East Soley for almost 15 years, and I've pretty much judged here every single month dressage in that time, and I worked out that it was something in the region of 7,500 or more riders that I've seen come in front of me to do dressage tests ranging from intro all the way up to advanced level. And over that period, I really noticed a pattern emerging across all of the levels about how people were losing marks in their test. So over the last year, I've been doing some small videos about that. I've been writing about it and really trying to get an idea of how I can communicate that to people so that they can get more marks. Because, you know, dressage ranges from somebody who's riding a horse that's hollow most of the time, but they want to go out, they want to do unaffiliated, they want to compete their horse, and they want to have a great time doing it. This system can help those riders. This system can also help the riders who already have their horse moving in an outline, in a rhythm, with some level of balance. It will help them pick up more marks than they would do otherwise. And to that end, we actually have 4 demo riders here today. We have all levels, all the way up to Demelza horse, who's come up to show us some more advanced movements on her advanced horse. And Demelza will also be putting out some of her leaflets. Demelza was classically trained at the Card Noir, and I've seen Demelza ride, and she rides very nicely. All of these riders I have coached. However, 3 of the riders I've only seen once before. So they're going to be asked to kind of forget what we talked about and then do it right again. So you'll at least see what they typically used to do. It wasn't a lesson as such, it was much more to find out what their typical errors were when they were doing the movements and then selecting them for the appropriate part of the demo. The system that I've put together is a sort of 5-step system which will help you get more marks. The first is accuracy. It is the baseline. Accuracy isn't just turning at the right marker or making a transition at the right marker. Accuracy is much about how you perform the movements, how the movements move from one movement to the next, what the mechanics of movement are, what problems each particular movement present to you. You know, the purpose of the various tests and for the judge is the judge to sit there and decide how well you have trained your horse to this particular level of test. One of the things that we'll be covering in accuracy is a lot to do with your horse's straightness and how your horse uses its shoulders. So we'll be talking about that. And hopefully by the end of that session, you'll be able to spot it being done incorrectly with the riders that we've seen going around. And when you go away, you'll be able to look at other riders doing tests and be able to spot the typical errors that are being made. and they are being made from prelim up to advanced level. The next step that I talk about with people is fluidity. Now, fluidity comes from accuracy. One can't have fluidity and be inaccurate, essentially. Fluidity is how you move from one movement to the next. One of the demonstrations we're going to have a little bit later on is coming out of a corner into half pass. And it's going to be quite, well, we'll see how it goes, but hopefully we're going to show an inaccurate corner ridden incorrectly into half pass, and you'll see the effect that that has on the half pass, and then we're going to go and do it correctly, and you'll see the difference it makes. So, you know, fluidity is really important. Fluidity is also about preparation as well. So, how you prepare for your next movement, how you think about how you're doing your test, how you think about your horse's shortcomings. You know, we all don't own horses that are kind of perfectly made and have no issues. Some horses, you know, occasionally strike up on the wrong leg. Some horses lean on one shoulder more than the other. These are the things that you should be thinking about when you ride your test, and you know you have to move from one movement to the next. So, you know, if your horse falls in one particular direction and you have to do a turn, you should be prepared for this. And that preparation helps with the fluidity. And we will talk a little bit about that later as well. The next sort of step is understanding. What I mean by understanding is understanding the purpose of the school movements, understanding what it is that the judge is looking for in these school movements. Some of this is, let's take free walk and a long rein, for instance. There's a reason for free walk and a long rein. The judge wants to see that the horse is able to stretch across its back, that it is free to reach down into the rein towards the rider's contact. So, you know, this kind of proves that the horse isn't held in the front and is behind the vertical and is afraid of the bit and so on and so on. You know, as soon as you push your hands forwards, the horse's head should follow that contact forward and down for you. The other thing free walk and a long rein demonstrates is a level of suppleness. I mean, actually, free walk and a long rein is a really difficult thing to get high marks for. As the horse reaches across its back, over its neck into the rein, it also pulls the muscles down the hamstrings as well. So you'll often go, I'm doing great stretching, and the judge writes 6, needs more energy. You're like, what? So I've spent all this time stretching my horse, and now I need more energy. So you put more energy in, and the horse's head comes up. And the reason for that is for the horse to get the overtrack and the activity and the ground cover that's required in free walk and a long rein. He's doing a complete stretch from the neck, over the back, down the hamstrings, as he's marching all the way across. So, in the section of the book on understanding, I do go into quite a lot of the movements and the reason for them and what you're meant to be demonstrating to the judge when this happens. Practice. I have an awful lot to say about practice, as my daughter Millie knows, who's going to be a bit of a demo rider, poor girl. You should be essentially practicing perfectly. Everything that you do counts. Every step you make in the arena practices something. So, as I often remind my daughter, who lets the reins go along and says, Daddy, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, the horse is falling out through its outside shoulder and you know, disappearing off to the right. So I'm sort of saying, like that, whilst trying to listen at the same time, of course, like a good dad. Practice is also about what you should be practicing when. So, let's say, for instance, you trained your horse and it's going nice and round, going large, doing a 20-meter circle. What do you practice next? Are you going to do a 15-meter circle, a 10-meter circle? Are you going to take it on a serpentine? Are you going to take it across the diagonal to change the rein? Are you going to do 2 half 20-meter circles to change the rein? What is it that you should be practicing on your horse? So I think practice is a lot to do with focus as well. Good riders focus from moment to moment. Has anyone ever had the experience of riding and someone asks them something and you just don't hear them at all? And, that's the kind of level of focus that riding needs. I mean, when I have lessons, my instructor often has to say things twice. And, I always have a bit of a laugh because sometimes it's to get me to do something else, and I'm actually I've got no more brain space to take any more information on anyway, let alone listen to somebody. And the final element in this sort of system is review. So Eloise, actually, just to mention, if we can have you in about 10 minutes. Got that? Hopefully. So review. It's really important to have a strategic idea of training your horse, to have regular review sessions. Now, who goes to an instructor regularly here? Okay, that's about half. One of the things that I find about weekly lessons is it's very easy to be doing the same thing or similar things every time you go for your session. And that's because the instructor gets used to the pupil gets used to the instructor. What I suggest is that you choose to have a review session, perhaps where your instructor is standing outside, maybe they do a test for you, so you get a more objective view of where you're at. The other side to review that and in the book as well, I actually give you a spreadsheet to do this with. Down the left-hand side of the spreadsheet, you should write every single movement that you have to perform in your tests. And then across the top, you're going to have a couple of columns. One column is the date of the competition, and the next column is three columns, comment and mark. So you're going to write the mark that you get for that particular movement, and you're going to write the comment in it. Now, after about 3 competitions, 3 tests, you should start looking down that list, and hopefully what you're going to spot is some patterns. Now, do you get the same comments on each movement? Do you get different comments on your left rein 20-meter circles or your right rein 20-meter circles? Are you making the same mistake over and over again? So review is really important, and there's a couple of things in the book that will really give you an idea of how to go about doing a review. A review doesn't have to actually be just about riding in the arena. Your review can be about your horse's nutrition, the saddle, the shoeing, its feet. You ought to be doing some kind of review, and that's especially true with saddles. I mean, God, saddles are expensive, and the trouble is your horse changes shape quite a bit, especially when you start training it. Frequently, you can find the horse change shape a lot. So that's another element to review as well. So today is mostly going to be about accuracy. So let me introduce you to the 20 by 40 arena, crowd, 20 by 40 meter arena. So let's just quickly talk about the salient points of the 20 by 40 meter arena. The H, M, F, K markers are all, actually, who knows how far in they are? Does anyone know? How far in from the end? Yes? It's 6 meters. So if you have a look at on your dresser, some of the sheets that you get actually have the markers in, but they're 6 meters. I have to confess something to you all, that our markers are 5.73 meters in from the track. Apologies, another 30 centimeters would take us here. But when I looked at actually pulling them out of the walls and repositioning them all, it was quite a bit of work. And there's a door down the bottom there where the markers actually would end up on the hinge of the door, so I can see why it was done. These markers have been up since we arrived here, so they've been here a long time. So, for instance, why it's interesting to know about this is, I think, And then if you have a look on the table towards the end, it shows a badly done 20-meter circle. And, you know, I can remember this when I was first being taught. I mean, I started riding when I was 18, 19, that kind of age, completely from the town. I'd never sat on a horse, but I was lucky enough to have a girlfriend who was horse crazy and was persuaded onto the horse. And I remember my instructors telling me to start my circle leaving the track at about age. So I think a lot of people do that, and I do see that happen quite a bit, and it ends up with very shallow circles. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, this side of the arena to this side of the arena, 20 meters. C to X, 20 meters. This arena is fantastic to practice in. I'm not selling our services, by the way, for harrowing the arena, but this arena, if you have a look down the sides, it's actually split into bays. You can see there's 7 bays all the way down the arena. What it means in here actually is it's really easy to know where you're supposed to be doing your dressage test. So 3.5 bays is 20 meters, and 1 3/4 bays is 10 meters. So I don't know. Can everyone see the circle down the bottom? Is that reasonably clear to everyone? So I'm hoping this mic will still work all the way down here. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the 20-meter circle before Eloise comes in. Gosh, you know what? I will do this up here very quickly.
Daddy, it's breaking up as you go further down.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll start from here. Let's just quickly talk about the 20-meter circle. If we were to take a square, a perfect square, and draw a perfect circle inside the perfect square, it would touch the square at 4 points. That's it, 4 points. And if we were to somehow stick on a computer screen and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, it would still only touch at that singular point. So that's the very first thing where people go wrong when they're doing their 20-meter circles. They don't step off the track at C or A or any of the markers as they go around. And you must step off the track at the marker to have any chance of doing a circle. It's not a circle if you're going straight. So again, if you have a look at the end, you'll see the typical shape, and Eloise, who's coming in a minute, demonstrates that really nicely, actually. I saw her for about 40 minutes a couple of days ago, and that was the very first thing she did, was the typical 20-meter circle. So let's start off with pointing out the point that we should be aiming for on the track. I'm just going to mark this in here. There we go. And I'm going to walk around on the 20-meter circle. I think you can see it reasonably well from there, but I think it helps if a person walks around it. The only thing, by the way, that I didn't like about doing it from down here with everyone up there, my bald spot is so obvious. I'm going to have a shaven all off at one point. So we step off the track at C. Your horse's inside foreleg should step off the track at C. And we actually what we're aiming for is that marker, and we go nowhere near the corner. You know, we're here. There's nowhere near the corner. And you're literally just going to step onto the track at that 1 3/4 bays, which is 10 meters from the end. And the next point you're aiming for is obviously X. And I think this is where typically people go wrong, is they start drifting. One of the things that I'll bang on about here and I'll bang on about in the book is that any turn you make involves no drifting. The horse turns every stride. That inside foreleg turns every step they make. And you should be aware of that fact, and you should be thinking about that kind of level of detail. And I have some really nice imagery stolen from my instructor, Mary Wanless, which will help you be extremely accurate on these circles. What helps with the drift is think about X, and to realize that as you get to X, this is the highest point that you're going to go at. You should be, as soon as you hit X, you should be turning directly away from X. And again, you're aiming for that 1 3/4 bays or 10 meters. And I really recommend, if you do have access to the correctly sized arena, that you go and mark these points in. So you're stepping onto the track, and then you're following it round again. Sorry, not following the track around, but you're coming round on the circle here. And your aim point is to hit the track at C. Not over there or over there, but at C. At C, your horse's outside shoulder hits the track, and then the horse goes off straight into the corner. It becomes really obvious to the judge, you're doing a circle, you're going large. Okay? Practice makes perfect, not what you think you're practicing, but what you're actually practicing. So every time you do a circle where you allow your horse to drift, you're training your horse to drift. That's all you're doing. And you'll see that in a number of riders as they come in. So just to complete the circle all the way around, and you're stepping back onto the track here, and you go large. So the key really is get used to stepping off the track at the C and A markers. One of the things that I do mention frequently to riders when I'm teaching them to be more accurate, and you know, what you will learn in the book and what you'll learn from this demo isn't all that complicated. You know, it won't take you years of training to learn to be accurate. You know, once you have these ideas in your mind, once you've kind of read the book, it's not like, you know, you have to read the book 10 times to kind of figure it out or anything like that. Some of these concepts are pretty simple, and they work whether you're doing, you know, riding around on a hollow horse doing an intro test, or whether you're at Grand Prix doing 8-meter vaults in canter or pirouettes or whatever it is you're doing. It works no matter what the level is. And it goes wrong, seemingly, no matter what the level is at. We all tend to... Sorry?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I understand exactly what you're saying about the foreleg off the track. My question is basically, which part of the horse is meant to be at a marker? Sorry if you've covered this already.
That's all right. No, I haven't, and it's a really good question.
Is it nose, chest, leg?
Shoulder. Your shoulder... Let's say you were asked to halt at A, for instance. Unless you're on a really small pony, I shouldn't see A, because your body should be blocking it. Okay, so that's you at A. Okay, and it's pretty much almost the horse's shoulder. So you know, if the foreleg comes off, or it's your body that peels away at that point, that's fine. And yeah, so I mean, when we get into do things like changes of rein as well, I mean, that's a change of rein is a typical error that people make by leaving typically way too early. Actually, most people leave these corners far too early. So can we have Eloise in? Are you all right to check? Oh, somebody's going. Cool. So are there any questions just about that little bit that we talked about? I am going to go and cover circles at E and B with this rider. So you will see another circle explained. So now I've gone over the circle. I mean, it's going to be really interesting for Eloise to do this because she can see the circle in the arena floor. So I'm really hoping she shows the previous one first. Maybe we'll get her to do it up here if her horse isn't too worried about the people at the top. While we're waiting, I will mention one other thing is whatever the size of circle that you're doing, there's a couple of things to think about. The very first thing is, what is the angle that I need to leave the track at? Okay, so it's quite easy with 20-meter circles. It gets much harder at 15-meter circles, really hard at 10-meter circles, really hard at 8-meter circles. One of the things that will help you is when you turn off that track, how sharply must you turn off that track to make your shape? You should grab yourselves a lunge line, just like we did this morning. Mark off on that lunge line 2.5 meters, 5 meters, 7.5 meters, and that becomes the radius of the circle that you want to work on. And then you have one person stand in the middle, holding the lunge line up against their tummy like this, and the other person on the end of the lunge line doing what Millie and I did this morning with this shape. I was stood in the middle, and just kind of like dragging your feet along like that. Draw the shape where you need it to be, and you will actually start to see the angle that you have to turn off on. Don't leave it to chance, really. I would get the circle, I'd stick it in your arena, and practice coming off it. Practice that angle coming off it, so you know it. You know that angle. I mean, when I do circles, I'm riding. I just know the angle that I have to come off on, and then I use other reference points to correct it. It's really important to keep correcting all the time, to keep in your mind where you're going, and outside aids, inside aids, whatever it needs for you to keep correcting yours. Don't ever drift. Drift drives me crackers, doesn't it, Millie?
Yeah.
Bless. Actually, Millie's doesn't really get as much instruction as you think she would get, because Dad's always too busy. So she does quite well, really. Do we have the rider coming in? Do you know if the rider's coming in? That'd be good, yeah. Because we're at past now.
Can I just ask you to backtrack? So you had 5 things: accuracy, fluidity.
Yep.
I can't remember what the next one was.
Okay.
And practice.
Understanding,
review.
practice, and review. Yeah. So really understanding is kind of, what are the judges looking for? What's the purpose of the movement? And you know what? For what is the purpose of the movements? That's a really good piece of knowledge to have for when you're training your horse. Now, if I'm riding a horse that gets tense, becomes hollow, then I will do free walking along rein with it. I'll get it to reach down into the rein. I'll get it to stretch back over its back again. Or we'll do that in trot. Or we'll do some other manoeuvre that the horse finds less difficult. For instance, if you're cantering and your horse does quarters, if your horse is bringing its quarters in. Well, knowing the purpose of shoulder in, knowing how to form shoulder in, you can correct that issue. So, it's just useful. 3-loop serpentines. Can your horse maintain its rhythm through changes of bend, maintain its outline? I mean, I actually really love doing 3-loop serpentines. I just love the rhythm of it. I love being able to change my position, change the horse's bend. I think it's a great exercise to do with your horse once you've kind of got a handle on your horse's rhythm and balance. So it's no good like winging around doing your serpentines if your horse can't handle it. But actually, do you know what? Well, since we have someone. Aha! Right, we have an entrant. So this is Eloise Armstrong. Eloise works as a full-time project manager for the NHS and has been riding since the age of 6. Mostly on thoroughbreds and training, and hasn't really done any competitions. In fact, I think the very first competition you did and the last one you done was here at the Unaffiliated. The horse's name is Lord of Beauty. Stable name is Two Socks. He's 14 years old, thoroughbred, who's actually spent 8 years in racing, running over hurdles over a distance of 3 miles. He came out of racing following a suspensory injury, and Eloise has had him ever since. He hasn't really done anything. As I mentioned, it was his first outing last weekend. He's a pretty sensitive horse who lives on his nerves. So Eloise's main objective really is to try and improve his level of trust with the rider, to get him to remain calm, and to try and get him to be a little bit more rhythmical. So, I think this is one end of the scale I mentioned. This horse kind of goes between being round and being hollow, falling in, falling out, that kind of thing. And we will talk about those particular issues now. He doesn't seem too bothered, does he, by being down this end, which is great. Okay. So, do you know what? One of the things that my instructor's talked about recently on her Facebook page has been about when you're practicing, how you feel about your practice and how you feel about making a mistake or being told you're doing it wrong, or and how these things can often escalate. So Eloise, I just want to say, if I say anything rude by accident, it's not meant, don't take it personally. I'm not known for being rude, I don't think, so we should be alright. But one of the things that you should always be thinking about the stage of riding you're at is that you are at the stage of riding you're at, and you are doing the best you can at that stage that you're at. Try not to kind of judge yourself against other people. You should always be judging yourself against yourself. So, one of the things that I always say is be happy with small improvements. And I think Demelza is of the same opinion as well. Watching Demelza ride, she's so sympathetic with her horses, and her horse looks so sort of soft. I mean, I've only seen her ride once, to be fair, but, the horse looks lovely and relaxed and completely trusting of the rider. So Eloise, I know we've had one session together, but what I'm hoping is that you're going to show your original circle shape. Okay? The primordial circle. So would you like to take him up into trot? You can go large. If you can just jump over the school shapes.
Yes.
I'm joking. Millie spent hours. Do you know what? By the way, if you do go home and decide to do these, really do them one at a time. Do one and it kills your thighs. I mean, we were wrecked at the end of it, and Millie did much more than I did. She's running around doing this, and I'm stood in the middle. Come on, Millie, faster! And then she made me do it, and gosh, yeah. So Eloise, let's do one at the letter C. And, Eloise, I think, does the typical one from the book that I show as the sort of not so great example. So we're onto a circle at C. That's perfect, Eloise. Well done. Well done. That was perfect. So, for the purpose of the demonstration, that was excellent. You can walk him just for a second while I just explain some of this. So I just did a quick mark in the ground. I know it's really difficult to see these things. It would be great to have luminescent paint, but it wouldn't come out. So you see that kind of X is up here somewhere. So this is what I see 90% of the time when I'm judging. It drives me crackers. If anyone's ever been judged by me, you'll have comments on your sheet saying, circles do not have corners. So, who would like to point out what went wrong there? Do you know what? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to knock off at least one, depending on how horrific the circle shape is. But, it's not because of what you think. It's not because I'm going, accuracy is the be-all and end-all. Watching that horse go around there, has anyone got any comments as to its straightness? Yeah, so it wasn't straight on the circle, and it was falling out through its shoulder in places. So, the trouble with doing this kind of circle is you are not demonstrating your horse's straightness very well. Okay? And you are likely to end up with your horse falling out and drifting through its shoulder. So one of the things I do say in the book is that the reason for accuracy is because it is most likely to demonstrate your horse in its best light. You are, if you are doing a 20-meter circle, that means coming off here and turning across. You are doing a way sharper turn than is necessary for your circle. So you're making it harder on your horse. By focusing on accuracy, you increase your fluidity. Actually, is kind of like that whole next stage. If you're doing a 20-meter circle correctly, you're doing the least amount of turning you need to do to get round your circle. But if you're doing it inaccurately, you're causing the horse to fall out. So, who would like to just mention a couple of the faults that they saw around anyone? But yeah.
From here, you can see her tracks. In fact, probably more from up here. She just followed the line all round, didn't turn off and go.
Yeah. So she sort of followed it round, and as I said before, that's pretty typical. So, Eloise, you've had a little bit of torturing from me. So, what I'm hoping to do is to get you to come and do a more correct 20-meter circle. Don't worry about it being perfect, but let's see if we can recap for you very quickly. 1 3/4 bays across to each side is where you want to sort of hit. We talked a lot about keeping turning, so that's the other big deal, and also stepping off the track at the marker. So if you'd like to trot on going large, and then once you get back up to this end, we'll do a 20-meter circle, just as that wasn't much warning. So Millie, 10 minutes, maximum. So you can see this horse, when he does go hollow, he actually loses his rhythm a little bit. Are you doing a circle correctly, Eloise? Do you want to try that again? Now this is Millie. See, I'm really nice to most people. This is Millie. We're like, what was that? So remember, leave the track at sea and aim for that mark. So turning away, better, good. And little turning, keep turning. Yeah, well done. And you're going to hit X, and you keep turning. Good. And keep turning. So what happened on the second half? So he kind of fell out, didn't he? See if you can go for that again. Sorry for the lack of warning there. So typically that's what happens. People get to X and they drift, but you need to keep turning. So you stop turning a bit there. Keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning more than, yeah, good for you. Keep turning, good, and keep turning, and keep turning, and keep turning. Oh, well done, much better, good for you. Great. Okay, and then just bring him to walk again, well done. Who can see this horse falls out this way? Can everyone see that? So this is a form of what I call, well, at least on this range, turning left, stepping right. So the horse is turning left, but he's stepping right through his shoulder. I won't ask the question, I'll tell you instead, just because it's a bit quicker. The horse should be level through both shoulders. You should be making your turn with the horse level through both shoulders. If he's leaning on one shoulder or the other, then he's either falling in or falling out. And every time you allow your horse to do that, you are training the horse to lean and therefore be on the forehand and unbalanced on one shoulder. Okay? Well, just generally unbalanced. Now, we talked a little bit about that with Eloise actually. What that was. And the typical thing that people do wrong is they get too much bend. And as soon as you get too much bend, the horse simply jackknifes. So you get too much bend to the inside, you're almost asking your horse to fall onto its outside shoulder. And if we look at the, and again, it's another reason to draw circles in your arena floor. If you were to stand on the circumference of a 20-meter circle, there's barely any bend for the length of your horse. Okay? And the shorter the horse, the less bend there is. You know, a pony could go around almost straight and the judge wouldn't blink because it's bent for the correct radius of the circle. And actually, you know, with bigger horses, you do get more of a problem with the rider sort of going on the inside rein, trying to kind of get them round the turn. So the key really when you're doing your turns and circles, this is a bit of imagery that I really think it's important when you present ideas to credit the right people. And this idea came from Mary Wanless, who's my instructor. Imagine that your circle is like a gymnastic balance beam, okay? So that's raised up off the floor, has been wrought into the shape of your circle, and is only wide enough for you to trot your horse along the top of. Okay, literally, big fall down to the floor either side, wide enough for your horse to trot along the top of, if he stays on the right shape. And the question you should be asking yourself regularly is, which side of the balance beam would my horse fall off? Would he fall off to the left? Would he fall off to the right? This will give you an answer as to where the weighting is in your horse's shoulder. And it's just been, for me, one of those pieces of imagery that works really well. You know, people get it quite easily. So we would say with this horse, when he's doing the circle, he would fall off to the right of the balance beam. And it's another incentive as well to keep turning, to keep that idea in your mind of keep turning. Because the moment you drift, you'll just fall off the outside of the balance beam. So create your bend, yes, but keep feeling that the horse steps left, steps left, steps left. I did mention a little story of Millie, and I do have to keep reminding her. Maybe it's a parent-child thing. I think everyone has to keep, you know, say thank you, don't fall out on the rein. And, you know, you just have to keep turning every step. Keep that in mind all the time. And that will get you perfect circles. That will get you riding with enough focus as well on what you're doing. Let's just quickly cover the circle at E and B. I won't ask Eloise to do it incorrectly on purpose, but it might happen incorrectly anyway. We'll see how it goes. So, 1 3/4. Oh, actually, we did one. So, are you able to see it on the floor at all? At all, this 20-meter circle. It isn't actually terribly clear, but it comes out to here. So, you know, 20-meter circles at E and B are another great one for judges to see you falling out. Let's say we're starting our circle at the E marker. So if you want to change the rein, actually, you can follow the instructions here. If we're starting at E, please step off the marker at E. Okay? And if you've had the circle kind of drawn into the school floor, you'll at least get an idea of how sharply you turn off. I treat circles at E and B in quarters. I ride them in quarters, and I ride them progressively in quarters. So I start turning off the track, and I'm really fixed halfway between X and C, and I'm keeping an eye on that marker. We've already talked about you turn, you turn, you turn, you're always turning. Are people freezing up there? Boiling down here, it's great. And this is the marker that you're looking for, and this has the same, I mean, circles at E and B are much harder, I think, than at C and A, because drift is the biggest issue that will happen. It'll happen to you twice. It'll happen to you here, it'll happen to you over there. With C, it'll probably happen around about X, and that's about it. So as you get to the highest point of your turn, you must be looking at B. You must get to the marker at B. And, you know, if you're coming around, I don't know if anyone can see from kind of up there, but, you know, you really don't spend an awful lot of time. We touch the track here, and, you know, we're already curving off the track here. It's such a giveaway. I mean, to be fair, you're not fooling the judge anyway. If you're line. Plus you're doing your horse a disservice. One of the things that I see more at advanced level, and we're talking about 10-metre circles here, and I remember writing for Lindsay Jenkins up in the box up there, and we both went, ooh, at exactly the same time for this same mistake. But I call it angles of inaccuracy. I had to choose a fancy word for it. But what it means is, imagine we're doing our 10-metre circle here, and you are falling out. As you fall out, like so, you're going to end up hitting the track at a sharp angle, and then you're going to have to turn to get back onto the track. That's what I call angles of inaccuracy. You've made your horse fall out, so I'm deducting a mark, because I'm nice. And your horse has just gone on the track, so I might even deduct, 2 marks for that. So you've kind of made it difficult for your horse lots of ways. So, really important to us. Eloise is just going to do a 20-metre circle and Millie can come in. So, Eloise, if you're happy to trot on, apologies that I've had to kind of ignore you and talk and everything. Great, okay. So, this is really good. So we're going in the other direction now. So can you all see the circle from up there? That was pretty reasonable, wasn't it? Yeah, you're doing well with the line to follow. But what is this horse doing? Exactly, it's falling in. Thank you very much, Eloise. Really appreciate it. I'd ask you all to give her a clap, but it's a racehorse. We would normally clap, but probably we shouldn't. Thank you very much, Eloise. So let me say something about the inside shoulder thing. I've already talked a little bit about it. Who thinks their horse has a good rein and a bad rein? Yeah, you're naughty people. Okay, what we tend to think of the good rein, and you can just stick your hands up if this is true for you. The good rein is the horse where we can get bent. Is that what you'd say? Yeah? And the bad rein is the rein where the horse just gets on the inside rein and won't bend for us. I don't think like that when I ride. I don't think of good reins and bad reins. My horse is falling on a shoulder. If I, whichever way I'm going round, if my horse isn't straight, if it has a straightness issue, if it has a suppleness issue, it's because he's leaning on the shoulder. Okay? If we're going around to the right and he's falling in, he's leaning on his right shoulder. If we're going down round to the left, he's falling out, he's still falling on his right shoulder. Your correction needs to be the same no matter which way you're going round. It just so happens when the horse bends nicely, we're kind of conned. We've got a bend, we're so happy. But in actual fact, you're training your horse to fall onto your outside shoulder. If in fact he does. I mean, it is possible to have a bend and your horse therefore through both shoulders. But if your horse is good going round in one direction and not the other, your focus ought to be on correcting his shoulder. And I'm annoyed with myself actually, because I would really like to have just covered that with Eloise, but I might have to get Millie to show it incorrectly and then correct it again. So Millie has just turned 13-year-old. She's my daughter for her sins. You would imagine she gets lots of lessons, but in actual fact she doesn't. I am a principal consultant for a software firm, so I spend a huge amount of my time locked away in my office coding. So Millie doesn't get as much help as she should get, but she's kind of, suddenly got to that stage in her riding where it's all clicking together and, she's doing quite a nice job. This mare, Emma, how old is she? 7. She's 7. I should have given Millie a mic, otherwise she might not have heard. She's 7. She was started very late, so she's as far as we're concerned, she's quite green. Her canter is horrendous, and leave Millie too long to ride it over a period, she gets a little bit heavy. So I sort of pop on every now and again just to make a little correction to it. But butter wouldn't melt, I think, at the moment it looks like. Yes, it's going very nicely. Okay. So what Millie's going to demonstrate for us is hopefully some correct circles at E and C, and let's have a look. Oh, she's going to demonstrate a correct change of rein across the diagonal, and we'll see how the free walk and a long rein goes. Does anyone here have, it sounds a bit weird, does anyone here have a special movement that they're really good at doing? Wow, completely nobody. What do you do with the outside shoulder then, Millie? Careful, 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 careful. Okay, fair enough, that went down. So, I'm really good at teaching horses to do free walk and a long rein. You know, I can get anything to do free walk and long rein, have its nose on the floor, lift up over its back. My other speciality is pirouettes and walk. I can pretty much teach anything to do pirouettes, I don't know why. Bit weird. We'll see how the free walk and a long rein goes. This mare tends to get, if she does the stretch, she goes, bleh. And if she marches on, she does the, slightly sort of head up and not quite as reaching the rein as we'd like. So Millie, if you can come back to medium walk and then back into trot, and demonstrate to us a 20-minute cycle. Doesn't matter which rein. Pick the rein that she falls out on. I guess it's this rein, isn't it? This is the better rein, yes. Okay. So hopefully Millie's going to demonstrate the better rein. Now this mare is a little bit deep if you can lift her up a bit more. Does everyone knows what I mean by a bit deep, yeah? So she tends to be a little bit on the forehand if we're not careful. Keep turning. Good, good. Good girl. And back onto the track at C. So that was quite nice. And I think you can see the gradual turning. Do you know what? Did she get to X? Oh, good. I didn't see that bit. A little bit more forward milling, a little bit more lift up through the shoulders if you can. That's better. Good girl. So hopefully you can see smooth turning, always turning, rhythmical, and it looked. Do you think that would have got a reasonable mark? Yeah, it was pretty smooth, wasn't it? And this is going to help you pick them up. I mean, this mare, she needs to come more up off the forehand. She needs to step more underneath her. She needs to have a little bit more impulsion, lighter through the withers. These are all kind of works in progress with her. And again, she just doesn't get the attention. Well, neither of them do that. They deserve, really. So, Millie, can you go back onto the good rein and show me what she does with her right shoulder? I have to say, I've never sat on a horse so unstraight in my life when we first sat on her. It was So we're going to get some inside bend here. We're going to get some inside bend. Can we see this? Is this really clear to everyone? This becomes, okay, straighten up, Millie, stop torturing her. So this becomes really clear when you start doing 10-metre circles, 15-metre circles, turns up the centre line, and so on. And actually, for us, this has been the biggest deal to fix. If you allow her to be not straight, if you allow her to lean on her right shoulder, she becomes really heavy. It's the first way on to being on the forehand and losing balance. Okay, so Millie, would you show me a change of rein across the diagonal, any one you like, and then you can walk, because we're just going to explain changes of rein across the diagonal. Make sure you do it good. So if I was to make a little niggle, actually I won't niggle about it yet, but I will once I've explained it correctly. Good girl. And again, KXM if you can. I'm sorry. I did say walk, didn't I? Instructors, good grief. Sorry, Millie. Will you? Yeah, that's right. So just see if you can, it'll be easy this rein actually, but on the other rein it looked like it didn't have quite enough bend, that's better. But she needs to come more up, good for you. Okay, and then walk for me. So I can explain this. Oh, bless. Alright. Do you know, and this horse looks like super calm, but she has this kind of like, oh God, hysteria moment every now and again. And then goes completely calm like this. Well done, Lily, that was really nice. Changes of rein across the diagonal. Oh my goodness, this is another one where people typically go wrong. When are we doing, who are we doing corners with? We're doing corners with Melville, so it's a little bit later on. But you should leave the track here. Now, when I said I was being nitpicking with Millie, I think she was slightly late. Okay? It was just, she just said she was. So she was just very slightly late. She was very slightly late because we were on the left rein, and this mare really likes to go to her right shoulder. So sometimes it's like turning a bus with this horse. So really the key here is, and I'll talk about it a bit more later, but make sure you ride a corner, actually ride the corner. If this was right, if this was another 30 centimetres this way, which it should be, you should get a stride of straightness. You should be able to get a stride of straightness. I'm not saying if you're cantering on your horse, you'll get a stride of straightness, and if you're an advanced horse, you will. We'll talk about corners later. So really think about riding your corner and the horse's shoulders step away at this marker. Okay? Typically, are you going to show hang on a second. Are you going to show a not so great change of breath? Yeah. This rein or the she falls in? Yeah. Okay, cool. Good. So you're going to show us and Millie, you'll have to probably do it. You'll probably have to do it really bad. Whoops. No, that's too good. Can you turn right? Oh, it doesn't matter actually. Do it FXH. But we're talking about corner cutting madness, which I see a lot. And when you go to the other side, Millie, aim the nose at H, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Turn. Yeah, that's more like it. Generally, that's more like it. Aim the nose at H. Okay, so this is typical of what I see people doing. Change the rein across the diagonal. Okay, thanks, Millie. Walk. Sorry? Well, you're probably, if you're doing it both ends, you're probably going to end up losing two, because you're falling in there and cutting the corner. I mean, you're not even doing the movement at the marker, for instance, and you're falling in and cutting the corner here, and you've just presented your horse as unbalanced, and probably you lose marks in your collectors as well. So, you're just getting beat over the head for something that could be corrected. The change of diagonal doesn't matter. I mean, I would mark the rider down for this, but if it doesn't affect the horse, I can't mark the horse down doing its movement. No, it wouldn't bother me. As long as it doesn't affect the horse's balance, rhythm. If the horse does, I mean, seriously, they can do the whole test on the wrong diagonal. If they really want to. They can do an intro test in sitting trot all they like. As long as that doesn't affect the horse and the horse's balance, she'll only get marked down at the end as the rider for going around on the wrong diagonal all the way around. But I'm not even sure that you should be marking them down for that. But I would. Especially if it was her. She'd be in big trouble. Yes. I'm glad you asked that question, because that's what we're going to cover exactly with this section. But thank you very much for that. The 10 is available when you... So, So that's kind of the first deal is getting around this first part, having a bend, that little bit of straightness, and then turning. It's not something I'm really going to cover much today, but in terms of preparation, which is related to fluidity, by the way, is you should have, even if you are an advanced horse and you are doing a couple of straight strides, you want to have the horse bent before you turn. And that goes for any movement you're about to do, that you should bend your horse slightly and then turn. So essentially what you've done is you've positioned your horse for the circle shape and then you push it off onto the circle. This is the same for centre lines, any turns you're doing. Just have that little bit of bend. It will help it look more fluid. What will help it look more fluid is that you do your corner and you turn off at this marker. Not too early, don't wing round the corner, take your time. The second part of it, and I'm not running down to the bottom, I'm going to imagine I'm coming back up this way, is your horse is a bus. Sorry about that, I know you love your horses, but they're buses. They're long, okay? If you aim your horse's nose at H, by the time the rest of his body has got onto the track, you're already winging round the corner, okay? FXH, your horse's shoulder should be on the track at H, okay? I say aim your horse's nose about half a horse's distance. Thank you, Emma. If Charlotte can come in now, that would be brilliant. She doesn't know yet, but in the book I've dedicated it to two women in my life. One that at least helps me visit planet Earth very occasionally, and the other one was to my instructor, but Emma keeps me on the ground. Thank you, Millie, that was lovely. So, one horse's distance before the marker, or a half horse's distance, depending on the size of your horse, depending on the balance that your horse has. You might have to aim a little bit more this side of H. But the point is that the nose hits the track, the shoulders hits the track, the horse's butt hits the track, and you're pointing straight into the corner. Think about the angle that creates for you. It's a much smoother angle from coming across here and then going smoothly into the corner, or aim your horse's nose there, be at a sharp angle and be winging round the corner, making your horse lose balance. You must do the corner. You know, it makes the horse look smooth. Hopefully when Millie did her corners, they looked smooth. Yeah? And it is just here and at the other side. That's where you're going to kind of lose the marks, really. You know, if your horse can't smoothly come out of the corner, have it bend, get to the other side, create a little bit of bend to the inside and go smoothly into the corner. And again, that's preparation as well. You should make sure that you're using your inside leg, should you need to, creating an inside bend as you're approaching here already. Don't leave it. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that you would be, by the time your shoulders are here, you are straight going into the corner. Yeah? And, you know, has anyone seen that advert on TV about Gillette? You know, you win by an inch or a hair's breadth or whatever it talks about, yeah? Well, you could be wrong by a hair breadth, but, you know, you could be you saw Millie come round here, and she was a smidge late leaving from the track. I doubt a judge would be really, you know, you left by, you know, a tiny bit late. I would mention it to Millie, but probably others wouldn't. But the reason, would anyone know why I'd mention that to Millie if she didn't think anything about it? It's because she was out through her outside shoulder. Okay, so because the horse wasn't straight round its turn, it was falling out. Okay, so that's why I'd mentioned it to her, even if she was off by a hair or whatever it was. I'd mention it because she's not straight. Yeah, the leg should be off the track at H. And although it's quite hard to believe you could be straight for a stride this week, we've still got a whole extra 30 centimetres. Sorry? Yes. Yes. Yes, yeah, it is very, 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 very slightly. You wouldn't see it because you're still doing a curve. you're still doing curve, and then your horse's body is straight. He can't go, you know, they can't do that. So there is that kind of element, but you wouldn't be doing a wiggle, because you'd be making your turn and you would be looking across. And by the time you got to here, you would be straight. You're stepping off. Yeah, it is. Yeah, like smidgen. Just to kind of give that feel of fluidity and smoothness in your turn. But yeah, don't wing out of the corners. I mean, I see that all the time. Thank you very much, Millie. You may go. Yay! How's your horse clapping, Charlotte? Yay! Okay, right, okay. And he's off. Bless. Okay, so Jordan, are you going out that way, Millie? Okay, well, Millie gets the secret squirrel entrance. Did they make you go around that way?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But where?
That is outrageous. Charlotte Clark is 6'6", blue eyes. Charlotte's taken a competitive affiliated dress. Hey, mind my school move, Marcus. My legs are still killing me after doing that. So this horse is clean mint condition, known as Minty, 11 years old, Irish thoroughbred mare by Master Imp. So Charlotte's had him for just over a year. Minty would have been a classic problem horse with issues, so it's been an awful lot of work just to get her to this stage. And the last year has been spent trying to get correct rhythm and balance. Charlotte competes at BD novice level and hopes to be out in elementary next spring. Demel's horse helps a lot with Minty's training. So, what are we doing with Charlotte? So Charlotte, you think your saddle's moving? It might look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, we'll have a look. Let's be safe. Should we have a look? Yeah, that's a bit forward. Do you want to? We've got a board for you to mount on. Yeah, it's only a smidge, but once they start, don't they? Minty. Good, panic. So, again, I've seen Charlotte once, I think it was 20 minutes or so. We worked together, and it was just a question of finding out, which movements I could best demonstrate to you with Charlotte. Sorry. Do you need hands holding syrup? Shall I hold syrup?
Yeah.
I think that'll be safe, or is it?
Won't give you a laugh, everyone.
They can't see you. They can't see you in the corner, and the camera can't see you, so we're all good. Oh, yeah, I've got it. Got her, got it. Got the syrup. It's a smidge wobbly. How's that? Awesome. Oh dear. I just had a little laugh myself thinking, it's a bit odd that I find all of this stuff so exciting and interesting. Geometry. So, with Charlotte, we're going to actually have a look at how to ride up the centre line. We're going to have a quick chat about 15-metre circles, half 10-metre circles and incline back to the track. So, up the centre line is so important to get right. First impressions count, they really do. You could lose one less mark on your next movement just because you've done a great up the centre line. We are human and subjective judges trying to be objective. We really are trying to be as objective as possible. And Millie knows, for instance, when she gets a good mark, there's a good reason for her getting a good mark. But I also hand out lots of bad ones as well. So up the centre line is extremely important, and up the centre line is done wrong a lot, and people make it hard for themselves up on the centre line. And you know, some of this comes into corners. You okay? So are you all right doing up the centre lines for us?
Well, show them really bad.
Yeah, I think we'll do bad first. That would be really good. And then we'll do a bit of discussion, and then we'll try some better ones. Oh, is that your stick, Charlotte? Okay. And one more bad one. Actually, I think that was still probably quite good. You're too good, Charlotte. We need a dodgy one. Oh, there we go. And then you have to kind of correct. Yeah, that's it. Whip. Straight. Oh. That's taking the mick. all right. And then we'll let Minty have a little bit of calm down. Oh, bless. All right. So, coming up the centre line, people undershoot, people overshoot. Once you overshoot the centre line, you have to get back onto the centre line, and you're likely to drift the other direction as well. Charlotte showed that rather exaggerated, but rather perfectly of you know what typically happens with people. And I get a lot of people saying it's really hard to keep my horse straight going up the centre line. And usually it's hard to keep your horse straight down the centre line because you've never presented your horse straight up the centre line. Bit of a catch-22 really. So let's have a quick chat about getting up the centre line well. The very first thing you need to know is how far away from the marker you are going to do your turn. And you must know this, okay? You must know how far away from the marker every time that you're going to make your turn. For whichever rein you're going to come up the centre line on, it may be different. You know, your horse, we were going to show Millie doing up the centre lines until we did some up the centre lines a couple of days ago and the horse decided to turn like QE2. So we ditched that idea and went for the sort of circles and things. And on one particular rein, that mare is really difficult to get to turn up the centre line. So you would choose to start further away. The second thing you need to think about is how sharply am I going to turn when I do the turn? You know, how fast do I speed away from the turn? So those, and actually I think you'll remember those from when we talked about the circles. Those are typical things you should think about on turns, on circles. How sharply do I turn away from the track? So that's the first element. The second element is you need to think of your turn as a quarter circle, okay, which gets to a certain point the exact same distance from where you started your turn on the long side. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm not sure I'm explaining that brilliantly, but this is essentially the radius of your quarter circle. So let me do it in reverse. Let's talk about turning left at C, for instance. I go up towards C, and I will know how far away I have to start my turn at. A lot of people get this bit right, actually. What they don't get right is they don't choose where on the wall they're going to end their turn at. And what often happens is they have a horse that's falling out or falling in. So, fluidity means preparation, means get your horse bent in the direction that you want it to go in before you start your turn. Know the distance away you're going to start your turn, and using the balance beam idea we talked about before, you trot along the top of a circle which has a certain radius, and you land on the track straight. Okay, we hit the track, and we're going to be straight. Don't keep falling out through your shoulder, don't keep bending the horse way to the inside. You should have a stride or two of straightness before going into that corner. So, angle, how far away, quarter turn. Now, I don't know whether any of the sheets from the book are up there with that diagram on, but on the diagram I kind of mark points on the track for different radiuses of circles. So I put a mark there, and I would put a mark, say, here as well. And essentially, let's reverse this. Let's give you a really good view of the ball support. If we're doing this turn, you should be thinking that at here, we must be joined straight. We have completed our turn. So, the typical sin here is drifting. Everybody makes the turn and then drifts onto the centre line. You must start a known distance, choose a known radius, treat it like a quarter circle, and keep turning until you are straight. And then, lo and behold, at this point we are now straight, set up to the centre line. Okay? You're not drifting that way, you're not drifting this way, you are already straight and have the very best chance of staying straight going up the centre line. And one of the things that when I say keep turning, that means look at the mark you're going towards, keep your eyes fixed on it, and keep being alert for making adjustments. You know, you should be riding this step by step by step. You are turning step by step by step. And it should feel like that when you make the turn as well. So I think we've covered both ends, haven't we? Make sure you prepare, make sure you know distance, make the turn happen. So Charlotte, would you present, did you hear me explaining most of that? Excellent. So I'm hoping that you, after you're totally got off for one, you're going to do a better one for me. I think Minty's looking a little bit shell-shocked. Some new moves. Yeah, basic stuff, Craig. So, did everyone notice on that turn what was happening there? Right shoulder. So remember to keep turning, choose your distance. Oh, well done. Well done. Not too bad at all there. Good. And, you know, it looked, so to do a good turn left. Oh, well done. Well done. Good, good. Whoops. Okay. Good for you. Okay, and then you can either walk or, yeah. Oh, yes. So Charlotte's done a really good job with Minty, actually. You wouldn't believe how difficult Minty was. Well, I haven't seen it, but Charlotte explained to me the history behind all of that. So that looked pretty good, I think. Does everyone agree with that? To the outside or to the inside? To the inside. I didn't really notice it too much. I wasn't really looking at that point. I was sort of thinking about the audience, but possibly. The other, I guess the one last kind of issue that I see here is riders doing what car drivers sometimes do when they're turning. You know, they kind of, you know, they turn right and then, and you know, this is typically just down to, does your horse fall on one shoulder or the other? So, you know, if your horse falls on its right shoulder and you're going to turn left, that's when I see that kind of like, you know, you've seen the drivers, learners pull out, and you're like, can't overtake them. So, I think that's the last element of it is when you turn, create the bend, but just watch out. You know, one of the things I talk about in fluidity is understanding your horse's capabilities, understanding his typical faults. So, and don't just blindly follow what an instructor says. So an instructor says to you, when you get to here, you should bend your horse to the inside, and then, for God's sake, don't bend him low to the inside if he falls on his outside shoulder. So you would be actually thinking of controlling the outside shoulder with your outside hand, with your outside leg. Ooh, I should have done that with Millie. Maybe I will do that. Maybe I'll do that with Charlotte, actually. Can you come up to the top, Charlotte? Go on the left frame. I think that'd be great. I just want to quickly give a little bit of advice about how to straighten your horse up. Yeah, and probably do a sort of 15-meter circle-ish down here, just so. So Charlotte, would you show me a little bit of falling out through the? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and then straighten up there a little bit more. Good. Okay, and can you do falling in on this rein? No. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's better. That's better. So we can see the horse leaning onto that kind of left shoulder. It's not as bad as the falling out. She's not as good as the falling out, but she can do it. So let me just say that who's been taught to turn their shoulders when they turn? Yeah? I don't teach it, and it's not because I think it's particularly wrong. I wouldn't go ahead and say that the person who tells you to turn your shoulders is wrong. I just don't teach it because if you don't do it right, it leads to other issues. So what I often see with riders, and I wish you may have actually seen this happen to Eloise when she came in, on the left rein. But riders tend to go, when the horse falls out, they tend to grab at the inside rein, the inside hand comes back, the inside hip comes back, they twist to the inside, and you find them collapsing like that with the inside leg kind of shooting forward, and the horse is just piling on out to the right. So one of the things that you really ought to think that when you're turning is that you're turning the shoulders from the outside. If you've got a horse that falls out, it falls in, you'll make it fall in more. But if you're turning the horse, you want a small amount of inside bend, your outside rein controls the shoulder, your outside leg feels like you're bringing the horse round like a bus. So, especially with a horse that falls out, you need to think about doing that to force it to reach out a little bit more through its inside foreleg. Because it's doing this, it's got its inside foreleg tied in, and it's going through its outside shoulder like that. As a rider, you've probably been moved to this, and you actually end up having to go outside seat bone back and down, outside shoulder back, outside rein, outside leg, to kind of close off that kind of massive leakage that's kind of happened through the horse's outside shoulder. The same occurs when the horse falls in. You're actually just reversing it. You're closing the door a little bit with your inside rein, you're getting a little bit more down your inside leg, your inside seat bone, and you're kind of pushing the shoulder back into place. One of the techniques that I've heard recently, and I am stealing again from my instructor, is this idea of, so by the way, the reason to keep the shoulders not turning is just that if you have a tendency to twist, you could actually start it by doing this, and you actually, the rest of your body twists with you. So it's not wrong. You can ride very nicely by turning your shoulders and looking where you're going. But if your hips start following your shoulders and everything else, then you'll lose the horse's straightness. So this idea, which is one of those things. Does everyone think, by the way, that the balance beam idea is like really clear? You just know where the horse's weight and its shoulders is going to be. So this is one of those ideas as well. Although, like most of Mary's sort of analogies, they sound a bit crackers to start with, but I think once you think about it. So sounds quite gruesome, but she says to imagine through your pelvis you have a skewer. Someone's literally taken a silver skewer, stuck you through here, and you've got a skewer through there like that, sticking out either end. Through your belly button, the same kind of skewer's gone through either side, and also through your sternum as well. Okay, so you've got these three skewers through the middle that, if you are straight on your circle, should be parallel with the horse's body. Okay? If you turn your shoulders, well, that skewer is going to turn more to the inside while the other two are pointing in that direction. Does that make sense? If you twist to the inside like this, then all the skewers are going to start like twisting to the inside. So I think it's a really good idea that you ask yourself, where are these skewers pointing when you go around on your circle? You know, if you're on the circle where your horse is basically jackknifing, turning left like this, you can be pretty sure that all your skewers are like winging off to the inside of the circle, and he's disappearing off to the outside. So, on your turn, stay stacked over your body, stay straight. Think of the skewers being parallel with the horse's body, and that will just stop you twisting with the horse. It won't stop you from being tempted to twist with the horse, and you know there is always a point where the horse jackknives so much that everybody will pull on the inside rein. There's that kind of like heading towards the wall, horse still not turning up, and you pull on the inside rein. But you should be thinking of trying to control the shoulder through the outside aids. There is another element to turning, and for you to, when you're correcting your horse's shoulders, and it's tempo. And a lot of instructors, judges will talk about rhythm, and sometimes what they really are referring to is your horse's tempo. So they might say losing rhythm, they might say losing balance, and generally what's happened is your horse is speeding up its tempo, and especially when you go to use more outside leg or outside rein to try and straighten the horse up. Horses take the path of least resistance. So you put your leg on, the horse speeds up, because that's what they do when you put the leg on. And he speeds up jackknifing even more. So it's really important that as a rider you've got enough tone to hold a tempo together. Let's say we're doing this in trot. You've got to have a really clear up, down, this is the speed we're going at, as you apply your aids to turn the horse more sharply to make the shoulder step. If you don't have tempo control, it's very hard to make a horse stand straight. Okay? There's a couple of videos that my instructor has on how to maintain tempo on a horse, and Charlotte, we did this with you a bit, didn't we? Should we just do a quick sort of do the kind of slow, go a little bit quick, and then use your rising trot to slow the tempo down. Don't go quickly yet, just get her into trot, and I'll just explain this little bit, because you could go away from this with your horse that isn't straight, attempt to straighten it, and find it doesn't work and he speeds up. So let's just very quickly cover this issue. In the rising trot, why do we rise? Why do we rise? Anyone know? You do know. So we are out of the saddle on the way up, or on the way down when the horse's legs are not on the ground. So the horse is jumping from one diagonal next to the other. Our butt is in the saddle, or at the top of the rise, when the diagonal pairs are vertical on the ground. Okay? To get tempo control, it helps to think of putting a tiny little pause at the bottom of the rise, or a tiny little pause at the top of the rise, using your thigh muscles to make those legs stay on the ground that little bit more. Okay? If you ping out of the saddle like crazy, the horse's hind legs will start to ping like that. So if we go a little bit quicker, Charlotte.
I'll just let her do her thing.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Take off the brakes. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, that is getting a bit on fine speedy. Oh dear. Okay. So start thinking about slowing the speed of the rise, and think of putting a little pause at the bottom of the rise and a little pause at the top. Who's heard of the scales of training for British dressage? What's at the top? What's first? I want to say what's at the top, what's first? Rhythm. Totally important. Rhythm / tempo. You must have control, and actually I was going to mention this a little bit later and talk about rhythm and tempo in relation to accuracy and in relation to balance. But in order to turn correctly, in order to have balance, you must have tempo control. In your rising trot, that must be in your head all the time, that you have the same rhythm. And that takes a little bit of muscle tone, that takes you thinking about how long you spend in the saddle, how long you're at the top of the rise, and what the distance is from the bottom of the rise to the trot that you're making. And you need to keep making them the same all the time. And every time your foot goes in the saddle, it's got to feel and land in the same way that you landed last time you landed in the saddle. And as a rider, you have to spend a lot of mental energy focusing on that to happen. And, you know, if you've got it right, you could bring your horse to walk by really slowing the rise and bringing the horse forward to walk. Okay. Was there anything else? Oh, Charlotte, so we're going to do quickly 15-meter steps. Is Millie up there at all?
No.
Is there any chance I can get some... Actually, that really made it well, I should have done that. Idiot. Right. How are we doing for time? Actually, let's just check.
You've got 25 minutes.
OMG? Okay. So actually, Charlotte, we might even have to cut this a little bit shorter. Let's just quickly cover 15-meter circles. Now, a long time ago, and I'm not going to name any names or anything, it's quite funny. You know, I'm a computer guy. I work things out on screens and love geometry, and I program computers, and I'm just this kind of minded. And I'm this kind of minded when I ride. You know, I really want to be straight. I really want to have the horse balance. I can feel when the horse steps out by like a hoof print. It's that clear to me as I ride. And you know, actually, I'll tell you a very quick story. I know we haven't got time, but hey. A long while ago, I rode a horse that was hollow, had no rhythm, rushing everywhere, was not straight, not round. I mean, it was really difficult to ride. And I could get on it, I could lift its back up, and I think the first time I rode it in front of the client, I did quite a good job on it, and then got offered to school it. The very next day I schooled it, it went awful. I mean, oh my word, it was the worst session I've ever had in my life. The horse pulled my arms out, it got stressed, and I really couldn't work out what went wrong with it. And that night, lying in bed, I realised that I'd been riding quite decent horses up until that point. And I realised I was trying to fix everything. And that's kind of like, it's a bit of my mentality when I ride. I process lots of things simultaneously. You know, I'm always thinking about straightness to bend, the rhythm, the impulsion, is the horse round, is its back lift. I mean, I've got all this kind of stuff going on in my head. And I realised I was just trying to fix too much at once with this horse. The very next day I rode it, I went, you know what, we're not going to be straight. Let's forget about straightness. And that session and then onwards, we had so much better relationship, the horse went so much better. And the reason I mention it is when I mentioned earlier about perfect practice, what I mean by perfect practice is you should always be choosing what you're doing. You know, you should always be aware of what it is that you're choosing to do on your horse. So, if your horse is falling out, that's fine as long as you've chosen to have that happen. As long as you're aware that right now my horse is falling out, but you know, if I try and fix that, it blows everything else. I think you saw with Eloise's horse, you know, he actually occasionally got like this when she was trying to straighten it. So, you know, we would probably, if she was coming for lessons, we'd work on getting the horse to lift its back up, getting it more reached into the rein, getting it a little bit more supple before, you know, we started insisting so much that it would be exactly straight. So, whilst perfect practice is important, you can still choose what it is you're practicing. Or not practicing, as the case may be. Charlotte, yeah, if you could just do a quick 15-meter circle at C for me, you can do it right, because we're running out of time, and my voice is going as well. I don't normally talk for 2 hours straight, honestly. Okay, so but yeah, kind of start one off from C again. I know I kind of sprung it on you a bit. Okay, and then just walk for a second. Great. Millie, can I give you the glass? Come on, you can walk still. Let's work this out mathematically. 90 meters wide. Our 3/4 line is what? In from the track. 5 meters, yeah? 5 meters in from the track. So actually this is, I got from tangent. So this was the story. I was riding a horse under instruction, and I never ever have instruction from anyone other than my instruction, just from Mary. I can't bear having instructors. But at this time I did. So I was riding my 50-meter circle, and the instructor is saying to me, no smaller. And I'm kind of getting confused at this point. She said, no, it needs to be smaller. It needs to be 5 meters in from the track. Okay? And I argued the point for about 30 seconds and then just gave up. But can anyone see the problem with that? Yeah? It's a 10-meter circle, for goodness sakes. And the reason for pointing this out, the reason for mentioning it is, 15-meter circle, you're not that far in from the track. I think a lot of people do end up doing 10-meter circles when you're only 2.5 meters in from the side, either side. Okay? So it's not as tricky to do as you would think. And I certainly, once I've mastered a 20-meter circle on a horse, whatever mastered to you means. I mean, I get a little smile on my face when my horse stays rhythmical and round and does a perfectly shaped 20-meter circle without leaning on one shoulder or the other. I get really happy about things like that. And I would move to a 15-meter circle. I mean, that's the kind of next movement I would take my horse to. And then, if it was great at that, I'd start moving into serpentines at that point. So, 2.5 meters in, it's not very much. What about from X? We're 5 meters in from X. So it's a bit of a weird circle to do because you're kind of only in a tiny bit on these sides, but you're 5 meters in from X. So I'm going to stand 5 meters in from X, kinda. And do a little marker. Sorry, Demels, we've lost most of our school shapes. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Millie, come here. Go there. Don't grab me the ruler, please. Thank you. Okay. Maybe I'm just being too kind of ridiculous, but do you want to measure 5 meters in, Millie, from X for me? Don't break the stick, because Mummy will have some kind of heart failure. Okay, no, from X, but measure it in from X. Alright, don't worry. Let's do it. Let's do a 15-meter circle. My apologies. You can see why I wrote the book, can't you? And this kind of stuff. Okay, Charlotte, 15-meter circle. So, Charlotte. That's alright. Well done. Good. Who's going to criticize that? Who? Will you? Okay. Hands up. Someone criticize it. I was exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any criticism of that 15-meter circle? Come on, folks, we've been talking about it all this time. Come on. Who was it along here that said on the 20-meter circle? Was it you who mentioned the 20-meter circle going into the pond? Yes. Charlotte, you stayed on the track. Oh. Okay, so we're going to do a 15-meter circle, yeah? But you must step off the track. And even slightly more of an angle than you would have done otherwise. And I'm going to kind of stand where I shouldn't get killed. And, by the way, because it's 15 meters this way, it's 7.5 meters is the kind of point on the wall that she's going for. Okay, probably a bit big. So this is where you can see her going out through her outside shoulder as well as kind of like messing about a little bit. You don't have to do it, Charlotte, it's alright. Okay, so just watch the tempo, watch the control. So this is really hard for Charlotte on this rein. The mare really wants to kind of go through the outside shoulder. Um, so, okay, thank you. Turn. Oh, well done. That's better. That's better. Well done. And she will do it. Keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning. Don't hit the track yet. That's it. All right. All right. Give her a pat. Cool. All right. So that was definitely better. So I guess the point with 15-meter circles is how the widest part of the circle is 7.5 meters this way. So actually, it's only 1.5 meters away from H. So it's not very far out that you the widest point is. Okay, Charlotte, thank you so much. I'm sorry that you didn't get to do too much. Get some breaks. Thank you very much, Charlotte, and I think Millie. She's great, isn't she? She really is great. Okay. So thank you very much, Charlotte, and sorry we couldn't get to the other movements, but I seem to be yapping too much. Any guesses as to how big this horse is? It's big. It's really big. So this horse is 17.2. So she's going to show us the tightest movements and the smallest circles on a 17.2 horse. Yeah, how old is your chap? He's 10. Demelza began competing at a very young age, was very successful nationally in showing and competing in the big championships, and then started dressage at 17, having hunted, race-ridden and team-chased. That's an interesting move. Yeah. Yeah, I did everything too, falling off. She's been involved with rehab horses and so-called problem horses, and broken in youngsters many times over with care. Worked in Germany for Olympic rider, running his yard and training riders, and Demelza achieved teaching exams in France at the National Equestrian School in Saumur with the Carte Noire. She's now based in Boomerang, Hungerford, so literally 2 fields up the road, with her French boyfriend who also events and teaches. Currently training this particular horse for Grand Prix, fingers crossed. Both Demelza and, what's your boyfriend's name? How can I refer to him as your boyfriend? Nicholas. So Demelza and Nicholas riding other German warm-bloods at medium level that were bred on their parents' farm in Oxford. Correct, consistent training is their passion, building the horse's physique and confidence over the months and years, as well as the ride skills. Do you have your leaflets with you, Demelza? Excellent, okay. So I watched Demelza ride and heard lots of really good things about her, so you just check her out. A really patient trainer. So, Demelza. So again, I think I spent 30 minutes chatting with you, something like that. We did a couple of things. Yep. So I'm hoping that you'll do them a little bit wrong for us. And what I'd like to talk about, and I'll just call you when I would like you to do something, and we'll just, I'm just going to talk about corners. Corners are brilliant. I love corners. Has anyone heard the idea that you have to, to become good at something, you need like 10,000 repetitions to achieve this, to make it a neurological pathway? I mean, imagine how many times you've changed gears in a car. Well, corners are your repetitions for turns, okay? If you are doing your corners correctly, very soon you will have a much more balanced horse than you had before. So, in my book, diagram of corners, and for that diagram I've got a 20-metre circle at that end, and then a 15-metre circle into the corner, a 10-metre circle, and I think I've even got a sort of 6-metre circle in as well. The reason being is your corners are quarter turns and must be treated like this. I have almost successfully expunged from my riding teaching vocabulary right into the corner. I don't like it as a phrase, only because it's easily misconstrued by the rider. And generally they put their inside leg on, they bend their horse, and the horse falls out round the corner. Okay? And then it's difficult to get the horse straight, and then they knock boards over, and things like that happen in the dressage arena. So let's just say you should know the radius of the quarter circle that you're going to do for whatever pace you're in. So the 20-metre circle might be appropriate for a young horse that's doing canter around the arena. And you know, the corner that they may be the description of that part of the 20-metre circle. I mean, it's not great to do it in a dressage test, but if that's all the horse can do, then you should be doing that, not letting your young horse fall out all over the place, or at least attempting not to let that happen. You didn't see us do canter with Millie's horse. There's a reason for that. So know the radius for the pace you're in. Know the radius for whether you're schooling at home or whether you're competing. You know, if you're competing, you might want to take it a little bit easier on your horse round the turn. But whatever it is you're doing, you are doing a turn. Have I made this clear? Okay, so I think we've talked about turns a lot. I'm not going to go into corners too much, other than to say choose the radius that you're going to use with your horse and stick to it, and think of the balance being even round your corner. I know, you know, young horses and balanced horses, corners can feel really ghastly to ride, and you know, you may be tempted to sort of go lots of inside or inside leg, try and push them in to teach them to go deeper into corners, but don't, please don't, because you practice corners the most. If you get good at corners, you're going to be good at turns. You're going to be good at coming up the centre line. You're going to be good at turning left, turning right. You're going to be, you know, your horse is going to look so much smoother. Oh yeah, okay. So actually, you know, I think we kind of offset this a bit too close to the wall, because as we know, the horse doesn't trot along the edge of the wall. He trots a good foot or so in off the track. So I won't ask Melza to do this particular radius, although this is a 6-metre radius of a circle. Well, it's certainly not on the centre. I think it was 6. I think I did it a bit bigger. We'll see. You could probably measure it across and prove me wrong easily. But don't. I'm happy to be wrong, I'm just saying. We haven't got time. And actually, you know, I'm always happy to be wrong and corrected.
Yeah, right.
No, except when I'm right, then, you know, it's a different matter. Alright, so we're going to get the Melza to come up towards the top end on the right rein and do a slightly wrong corner HC. I know we can't, and actually even in the next corner as well. Is he alright with that board? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Oh, actually, which rein was it? Was it the left rein easier to turn? Yeah. Okay, now, am I being embarrassing by saying this? But the Melza said exactly the same thing. He's easier on the left. Was it the left rein? Oh, sorry, easier on the right rein. Okay. So he bends more on the right rein. Yeah. So de Melza said the same thing. My horse is easier on the right rein. And it's true to bend, he is definitely easier on the right rein. It's not huge amounts, but we can see. Can you see that from trotting round? I saw some of you not looking at me and paying attention and watching de Melza trot round. But he is a little bit out for his left shoulder. So if you could come and do a couple of corners for us, de Melza, that would be really great. And it's small, and you know, it's not a great big deal, but it might make a difference for more advanced movement. Not too bad there, actually. Oh, yeah. So that's okay. You can do a 20-meter radius circle with that corner. And I guess that's another thing, you know, if your horse is spooking in a corner, you should start setting your radiuses. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you know, we've been talking a lot about this. Okay. And then do you want to take them down the other end for a quick second? So we've been talking about this quite a lot. Does everyone see what the horse is doing through its outside shoulder? Is that really clear? Okay. So Melza, could you come and do a more correct one? We'll let you off just doing a correct one in this corner. Okay, so that was a little bit better. And then just do one more for us. So actually, he probably felt a little bit stiffer doing that. Yeah? And it's because he's much more used to going through his left shoulder. And now we're saying, please reach a bit more through your inside shoulder. That's smoother. Good. Cool. All right, and that's great. So the idea of the balance beam, again, is something you should have in your mind every corner you do. I love corners. Well, actually, it depends on the horse I'm riding. They sometimes feel so awful. Sorry, Tinker. Actually, she didn't feel too bad yesterday. That was quite nice riding her. Okay. So, 10-meter circles. Oh, let's go on the... yeah, so we're on this way now. Does everyone see how much easier that is for the horse? You know, he just looks much straighter on even through both shoulders as he goes around the turn. So use your corners to straighten your horse's shoulder every single time. Okay, so let's do you fancy doing can to 10 meters? Can to 10 meter circle?
We can try.
Okay. Do you want to do trot first? Let's do trot first, yeah.
Just to get my brain working.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a very conducive situation for warming the horse in, because you just get winged into the arena and perform, monkey.
Very good. What are you doing?
Let's have a think. Yeah, let's do it at. Oh yes, let's definitely do it at E, because we never talked about two half 10-meter circles, and actually I might challenge you to sort of do the two half 10-meter circles as well. This is another movement that I see done really, really badly. Who does these badly? Who does two half 10-meter circles badly? Would anyone like to pipe up and say what your problem is with it?
I do one half bigger than the other half.
One half bigger than the other half, yeah.
As my horse falls out, then I lose the second half.
Yeah. So, do you know, I tell you what the biggest deal I see here, exactly what you've described, but usually for the reason that people don't realise how shallow these half 10-meter circles are. And I generally see people doing massive loops. So they end up going down as far as like a 20-meter circle would be, and then kind of wonder why they overshoot the centre line and it's all gone completely wrong. But that's not just it. Can you see where they join?
Yeah.
Now, do you know, we didn't quite get it perfect. This is the trouble with using a lunge line. We didn't quite get it perfect, so I think we're slightly to the right here. Oh, it's sort of there. But the point is, can anyone see how little straightness is possible between these two circles? If you look at where they join in the centre, they touch, which is what you would expect. They touch for a small amount of time. And if you get the British Dressage Rule Book and read the section on serpentines and these kind of terms, it said the athlete and the horse should be straight for an instant through the centre. An instant. It's like, they haven't ridden our horses, obviously. So, this is another reason why this movement is actually pretty darn difficult, is the fact that you need to change bend pretty quick. But the usual problem is riders make too big a loop and therefore present themselves with too big a challenge, because you hit that centre line on just too sharp an angle. So, pop question, how many meters from E is the the widest point? 5. Yeah. So it isn't much. This is it. This is as far as it goes. Okay. If you are right on the turn like a balance beam, if you have control of your horse's shoulders, if you leave the track here, if you know the angle with which you come away from the track, you're on a good chance to getting this correct. I think it's really difficult because, to be honest, you can guess where that point is, but I find myself doing these and craning my neck round to the centre line. You've got to get this angle and this turn right. And then you need to keep looking at your marker, and as you get straighter, you need to then start, instead of looking at X, actually looking at A or something like that. If you fall out on this, it is so tricky. You've so got to have the horse balance through the shoulders. Do it and walk. Mark these out on the arena floor. It's easy to do. This will take you 5 minutes before you ride to do. Get a lunge line, measure it out, off you go. Easy peasy. And again, the trouble is, if you've made it too wide, if you're over here like this, you're kind of winging round, and you're making your horse unbalanced. So, oh dear, sorry, I'm on a PA there. Sorry about that. Right, shall we do? Yeah, let's just do a whole 10-metre circle first. So, Demelza's going to do this on the left rein. So I guess this in theory should be easier. Yeah, very good. Oh my god, that is like totally accurate. Whoop. Okay, so what happens to your shoulder? Oh, thanks. So what happened to your shoulder, Demelza? His shoulder, sorry. So did anyone see what happed on the sort of second half? Yeah, so we just lost the shoulder just a little bit. It was absolutely perfect. And then kind of the shoulder went a bit. Well done, well done. And that's typically what sort of happens, when you get to these kind of smaller movements. It's easy to create the bend, but it's hard to keep the horse balanced through both shoulders. That looks better. Treating it like a turn, good. Now do 2 half 10. Yeah, good. Oh, well done. Well done. And a little bit out through the sort of left shoulder there, you can see the kind of the foot swinging a little bit. Yeah? So, I hope more than anything, and I will sort of round this up quite quickly. We're kind of running out of time a little bit. Do you fancy doing the circle, the sort of outer corner half pass? Yeah. Let's just do it with trot, I think. Well, actually, it depends. Whichever he's bestest at. Okay, cool. That's total call. So, I know. Actually, do you know what? Go for doing it accurately first, and then we'll go wrong, because it's so much harder the other way.
I'll do it from the mirror in.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Out the way, Billy, please. So this is why accuracy is important. She comes out of the corner. If the horse is falling through its left shoulder and it's going to do half past right, you're in a whole heap load of trouble. Good boy. Because coming out of the corner, you have to position your horse bent right already. And he has to step right across in the half pass. And nice hold. Yeah, it's got a coat on it as well, and everything. It's totally scary. I'll try and say she doesn't hear, but one of the things I really like about Demelza is she's so calm and relaxed with her horses, and it's nice to see such a relaxed personality. So So are you, so should we do it on the same rein? Or do you want to do good on this rein? Okay. Now, anyone got any comments about that, coming around that corner? I think a little bit out through the right shoulder, yeah? Yeah? Okay. So do you want to redo it good? Or better, sorry? So, yeah, just be really careful that he doesn't sort of go outside, sort of around the circle, around the corner. Good. Well done. So that was a better start, I think, to that. And, you know, this is a good rider, a good test rider always has, they've worked out the strategy for the test that they're doing. They've realised that, you know, they come out of the corner, they go do half pass. Well, you have to come around that corner, you have to control your horse's shoulder, you have to set the position up correctly to move into it. That's accuracy, you know, coming around a corner and having your control your horse's shoulder, not falling out. That's accuracy, and it plays forward to fluidity. You're going to just do one this way for us? And actually do it really wrong if you can go really wrong this way. But I won't ask you to do it right again. Unless you want to and you feel like you should, but oh yeah, nice job. 72, you know? Watch the shoulder a little. Okay, so trot half fast this way, yeah? Okay. So just watch the shoulder if you come out of the corner. So steps left. Good boy. Cool. Now I really like Charlotte's position as well. You know, I think sorry, Demelza. Charlotte. Demelza. Sorry about that. Yes, Demelza's position. You know, it's not something that my book is about. Although I make references to my own instructor. And mostly I teach a small number of people. I don't like teach tons of people because I just don't have the time to do that or really want to spend my entire day doing teaching. So please do speak to Demelza. But one of the things that I like about Demelza and one of the things that I do teach as well is about the biomechanics of the rider. And one of the things I like about Demelza's position, she's balanced over her feet. You know, if you were to whisk the horse out from underneath her, she'd just kind of plop onto the arena floor, balanced. Yeah, sometimes. It's a dynamic interaction thing.
Can I ask, is there any rules about what stage you should move from riding trot to sitting trot? Can you do that whenever, or how does it work?
Okay, so in elementary, you should be sitting trot, unless it states that you can rise, because it does state in places you can do rise and trot. I can't remember the specific test, but yeah, after that you should be. To answer your question literally, I do sitting trot on my horse when his back carries me without influencing his balance and carriage and softness. And you know, if I can, and this just happens for me when I do something like walk to trot. If I go from walk to trot, you are doing sitting trot. And if I go from walk to trot, my horse remains completely smooth and round and its back lifted. I think, oh, we'll just keep sitting. You know, and you suddenly realise that, oh, we can do sitting trot now. And you know, then I wouldn't obviously keep being in sitting trot. I'd rise again, but you would start doing more sitting trot. It's not just something you would go, right, that's it, we're sitting trot, I've had enough of this, rise and trot. Let's do sitting. Yeah. And you know what, one of the things that I often say is 50% of how well you can sit is how sittable on your horse is. So, you know, if you've got a hollow horse, just don't bother. You know, it's just going to kill you and kill the horse as well. So, yeah, it is. You know when your horse is ready for sitting trot, when you can do those smooth transitions. Hello?
First question I might make on the 2.5 to 10 metre circle. I always manage to sort of not get ready for my second one in time.
Yeah.
How much in advance of, you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
When you start to prepare versus just changing it quickly.
So, you know, I think that's a function of how well you're doing the first circle anyway. Because if you come out too deep and you don't have control of your horse's shoulder, that gets really hard. That change of bend. If your horse is leaning on one shoulder as you come into that, it gets. I mean, like you say, you need like another 3 or 4 strides just to be able to change the bend. And you know, when you come into doing these things here, you know, when you come around there, it's not that much of a bend, to be honest. You know, if you've got the angle correct, you know, you're kind of straightening up there, and then you can change the bend. Part of it is, I think I mentioned it earlier. I don't know how much it's relevant for you, Demelza, but when you change bend, if you don't have tempo control over your horse, it is impossible to do. You've got to have a good, soft rhythm with the horse of a consistent tempo. That when you that's in your mind when you make the change of bend. You have to be thinking about that as you change the bend. So there's a lot to think about. Rhythm and tempo has an awful lot to do with balance and with your ability to turn the horse better, to direct the horse. If you don't have those basic things, which is why British Dressage has them as the very first thing, if you don't have tempo and rhythm, everything else gets difficult, because the moment you apply an A, the horse speeds up and still does the bad thing that we were trying to fix in the first place. So, yeah, rhythm and tempo play a big role, I think.
I would say from your question, I always start to organise, like after the first half of I've done the first half of the half circle, and then the second half I'm thinking, right, start to organise, and then I can just let him flow through it.
So that kind of goes to, do I have control of my horse's shoulder? Am I getting that to come round? Am I going to hit the marker correctly? And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I'm always banging on about when you turn, you step, you step, you step, you step, and in your mind you're stepping all the way around that circle. Because when you stop stepping, you drift. You're no longer in control of the accuracy or the rhythm or the straightness or the balance of your horse. You've checked out. Actually, that's a phrase Mary uses a lot. You know, she says, this rider's just checked out. You know, they're busy congratulating themselves on how great the horse feels, or you know, what they're having tomorrow for lunch, or whether they'll be able to make the turn when they get round to it. You know, and a lot of really sort of good riding is about focus, and focus from moment to moment to moment. So, you know, I hope I haven't bored you all to death, and I hope I've kind of given you some tools to think about being more accurate, getting more marks in your test, and I really hope that you will take this level of thinking about your horse's straightness on. I said it before, I love corners. I get to practice a turn every single corner and improve my horse's straightness and balance. So, you know, if you can think of your school movements like that, you know, there's 2 toolkits. The first toolkit is how well you ride. You know, are you balanced? Can you control tempo? Are you straight? How do you interface with the horse? And the second toolkit is the school movements, and how you use those school movements to train your horse. Now, obviously, until you know how to stop your horse from going through the outside shoulder, you know, you won't be able to be accurate. But I hope I've given you a few tips for that. So I'm going to pop up. Something I didn't mention is I've been a little bit ill over the last couple of weeks, so I am a smidge late with my books, hence you see the covers and example pages from it, so please have a look through those. I will be able to take an order for the book. You can write the message that you want me to sign in the book if you're interested in it, and I'll post those on to you as soon as I get them, which won't be very long at all. And you'll get an idea of the covers there. But I'll pop up. Thank you very much, everybody.